a rise in wanting to use African music to tell our story and to sell our products. So some of the adverts or work that we've done, I think we've gone through it quite a lot. We've done stuff for APSA, The Road. We do, our composer is actually one of the guys who does all the scoring for The Road, and then I do the music supervisory for all the commercial music. Supersport, Coke Studio Africa, Rhythm City, Isibaya. In terms of television, in terms of films, we've done Beyond the River, Tsotsi, we've done quite a few. Can anybody raise your hand and tell me what they understand what music supervisory is? Okay, it's filmmakers. I think it's one of the fields within the film industry and careers and as crews that is very important to know. So a music supervisor's role is to make sure that they source music. So that means that they work hand in hand with the director. They work sometimes even with the scripting team. They work hand in hand with the producer. So whoever are the main creatives in terms of how they're telling this story, the music supervisor needs to be involved in that. Because you can have a story in terms of this is how character development will be, this is what the storyline is going to be. But then how are you going to portray this story? The music needs to come hand in hand with that. And that is the role of the music supervisor, is to come with the creative elements of what the music requirements would be. Once you've gotten the music requirements of what the story is going to be or what the film is going to be like, a music supervisor then needs to start sourcing music, right? Because we're all not going to be able to do everything. As a producer, as a director, you're in the process of filming, the production. You don't have time to be listening to thousands of tracks. It is the role of a music supervisor to have relationships with every single record label, with every single publisher out there so that they can be able to source the right music for your film. Upon sourcing that music, obviously then we start placing and tracking. And a lot of times with the music supervisor, you also get requests from a director of certain songs that they would like, because they are creatives and they have a vision of what they're looking for. So that's why it's important for the music supervisor to work very closely with their director. From that, a music supervisor then clears all of that music. So it's their job to make sure that whatever that you have used is legally clear. All right? So it's not enough to go to your friend who does music and have a handshake agreement that their music can be used in your film. It is very important that you have permissions and you have agreements. Because remember that we are now not making movies for our backyard. We are trying to make movies for global appeal. The last thing that you want is for your movie to be halted because you didn't have music rights. And believe you me, I was talking to Tosh earlier and I was telling him about a production that I worked on. In the beginning, they didn't want a music supervisor because it's cost and it was going to take too much time. The movie went on to be sold internationally. Once that movie was sold internationally, it took a year for that movie to be able to come out. Film has long been done. It's been out in other markets. But the minute it got a US buy, it took a year and it was halted by one thing. Music rights were not cleared. So those are the things that you want to make sure that everything within that ecosystem of your film is properly sorted out. So what are we looking at price points? I know it's always very daunting. So when we're talking about a big international hit, you're probably looking, and obviously guys, Terms are a factor here, right? A lot of times when someone comes to me and says, I want you to clear a song for me for my film, I said, what are the terms? So the terms is the media, what we talked about earlier. It's the territory. Are you using this to flight worldwide? Is it for Africa? Is it for Kenya only? Where is it that you're looking to in the territory? And also for how long? Is it in perpetuity? Is it for 2 years? Is it for, for 6 months, 1 year? All those things become a determining factor to say, okay, this is how much we're going to charge. So unfortunately, you're never going to get a set standardized costings for how much films go, but this should give you a kind of a region, and obviously everything is negotiable sometimes. So a big international song, you're looking at anything from 30 to 45,000 US dollars per side. So what do I mean by per side? So remember we said that each song has 2 rights, master and publishing. What you do to the left, you must do to the right. So when we're saying $30,000 per side, we're saying $30,000 for master and $30,000 for publishing. So you're looking at $60,000 at a minimum for a big international song for usage. Sometimes it can be negotiated down for films because they are aware that in Africa we don't have the best film budgets, and in order for us to grow, we need to support, as music industry, we need to support the film industry so that they can possibly eventually afford to do a $60,000 budget for us, right? And then when you're talking about a big local hit, so when we're talking about a big local hit, we're talking about a Maphorisa Naile Walk, a Sauti Sol, Melanin. That can cost anything between $15,000 to $25,000 per side. So you're looking at, that would mean $30,000 to $50,000 for the usage, right? And then we looked at commissioned and bespoke music. So commissioned music is your music. We're not talking about the scoring, right? Because remember that your guy who's scoring for your film is going to charge per the number of minutes of use of music that you're going to require, and that becomes a negotiated fee. We're talking about now your commissioned music when it comes to more in terms of advertising and also television work, right? And that you can look in the region between 7,000 to 10,000 US dollars. And then when we look at library music, I know quite a lot of you guys are familiar with the international libraries that are out there, from Universal, from Sony. I think Universal is more in the market here. So those ones are quite a lot more affordable. The risk with library music is that it is non-exclusive. So we have had situations where 2 different brands, 2 different adverts at the same time are using the exact same piece. So that music will be non-exclusive because it is coming in at a much cheaper rate. But it can work if you are very specific and you're able to search the library very well. At Sheer, we do have a local library. We have an international and a local library, and I think it's very important that we start telling our stories in our tongue, because you cannot have an advert that talks about I don't know what's a tea or something that's South African or Kenyan, but then are using an international song. It cannot be taking place in the dusty streets of Nairobi, but the sound sounds like it's coming off of the London streets. So it's important to also try to merge that image with the music that you're hearing. So with our South African library, we have composers like Musioka. He's part of our composers that does music for our library, so you can get the Kenyan sound. We've got composers within West Africa, so you can get a Ghanaian high life. You want a hip life type of sound that is much more affordable than going out to get a commercially released song. That's something that we can also provide. And we also source composers. We source composers within our composer pool of clients and also our library pool of clients as well. Oh, I didn't learn. So this is an example of what we can do when it comes to commissioned music. This is one of our composers, Musioka. He created all the music for this advert as well as including the Foleys that were parts of the advert production. So there's a variety of what you can do with music. I think it's important that we start using local talents to have our stories being told. And it's also important to make sure that we are also clearing and making sure that everything is being done in the right way. So I think it's also important to grow the music supervisory fields and work with music supervisors within your regions to just make sure that you're using and clearing the music properly. Thank you.
Have a clicker. Thank you. Check. Okay, great. So now we'll discuss a little bit about that. So I think just hold your questions from Pumi to the end. So for me, Pumi has given us the theory on what a sync is. And for me, the perfect sync is when video and audio collide to create an emotion, okay, for the audience. So that emotion can be, you could have a chill down your spine. That emotion could be uplifting. That emotion could cause you to shed a tear. Okay? So we've taken a piece of Tosha's work where they featured Sauti Sol, and let's see how it did in terms of synchronization. Let's play it there. Just play that slide, Jeremy. Can you add some volume, please? Okay, thank you. Round of applause for Tosh and Delvin. So, I don't know about you, but I've watched this. I've not seen the movie. That's Disconnect. It was released towards the end of last year. I will see it, Tosh, I promise. But I've watched this clip now 4 times, and every time she steps out onto the stairs and the verse kicks in, I get a chill. And that's me. But that's how I know the sync was working. It's the right song for the right scene. Yeah? And I think it did very well. So I have a question for you, Delvin. I mean, 3 albums now. yeah, a lot of music over 10 years, yeah? So how does it feel when you see a movie like this featuring music from yourself and Sauti Sol?
1, 2. My name is Delvin Savara from Sauti Sol. Thank you for having us. What you've just asked is really important. It feels, as an artist, you know, sometimes our achievement or like how we ride on the glory is not only financial. It's when you see people appreciating your work in different ways, you know, be it in a series, be it in a movie, in any kind of sync deal. So this was a very good feeling, and it was, oh, finally it's happening. And we all know we need that push, even as a creative, for creative juices to flow. When you see the audience dancing to your music, when you see people being receptive to your work as a filmmaker, it gives you even more to do as compared to just getting the cash. So I think first, for your morale and everything, it's super important. Yeah.
Thank you. Great answer. Pumi, what do you think about the use of that track and that scene?
100%. It also gives me chills. I think that's where we now have music become a part of a film, and it becomes a character. Because they didn't need any kind of scripting for that particular scene, but the music was a character that portrayed and enhanced that particular scene and what they were trying to portray. And that's where music can become very important for that.
So basically the track told the story. There's no dialogue 100%. That was required. Yeah? Are we all seeing that? How music can play such an integral role. And as Pumi said, you know, some of the earliest movies with Charlie Chaplin, you know, and after that before that with the silent movies, you know, when music was introduced, it made such a big impact in terms of carrying the emotion and carrying the story. Yeah? Fantastic. John, let me come to you. I learned through this panel that you're also a composer. I didn't know that about you before. That's a fantastic opportunity. But you're known to the creative industry mainly as a music critic and also as a film critic.
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think about that scene and the way music was used?
I think one thing I can congratulate my colleagues there, because mostly you find filmmakers tend to ignore music. And for them to have come together is a real good achievement. And I think also going beyond that, also because I've seen the same with the Court Bureau, it was done in London. And also Sal Davis' song McKinney for commercials that was shown in Europe, actually. And I think, but one big problem is that I think somehow there's a disconnect, I mean, nothing to do with the film, between the producers, the filmmakers and musicians. They don't really interact too well. And some more people who go out to do films do not look out for music, they don't factor music as a big component in the to actually. And I think also I see a good example in the betting commercial. The music is not really Kenyan. I mean, that's a fact. It's more of a rock song. It could have done maybe more with a Sukuti kind of drumming or Mijikenda kind of drumming. Give it a real Kenyan character, give it Maasai chance, and actually. But when I look at it now, I see it more of a European rock song on a commercial that's meant for Kenya. And I think that's probably where people who do creatives in the industry should educate themselves actually about music and they look at the business, not just the current music, also go right back. That is a Daudi Kabaka. Like I remember BBC did a very good job with David Amunga's, America to Africa, when they're talking about refugees, people coming back to Africa. Yeah. And I think that's probably what people need to educate themselves. People don't stop at this thing that music started yesterday. It's been there for a long, long time. Films have been here since 1948, I think that's what they started. And probably look at films, not necessarily for technical quality, but also for the sound and also for the country identity. And it doesn't have to always be Kenya. You can also look at Tanzania and Uganda, kind of create a East African forum, because music is music from Uganda and Tanzania launched in Kenya. So there's a bit of that connection. And I think that's probably where now people should really work at, create connections, create even probably libraries, also radio, to kind of feature more of the regional music, so that they can be also like a library of sorts where people see what each country is offering. And in a way, to also create a platform for East African films, because they can see the interrelation. And I think, and there's also commercials. I mean, have like East Africa as a home base market for films, and then as a launching platform where music, a film made in Kenya will be launched in Tanzania and Uganda, and you'll be happy to see us to see the character and probably the music and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you, John. So John was really speaking to our identity as a region, you know. So we have in Kenya and the region, we have the film industry and we have the music industry, yeah, and a very big divide in between. But we're all trying to push the same identity, right? So that's what needs to bring it together. And I'm very happy to see a film like Disconnect and a filmmaker like Tosh going out and showing that initiative. So my question to Tosh is, first of all, why did you choose that track for that scene?
I must first confess, as a filmmaker, so as a director, you're in charge of making a film and bringing everything together,
yes,
which includes music.
Yes.
I must confess that one of my weakest points is music. From Nairobi Half-Life to this one now, I usually know what I want, but I'm not specific. You know, there are directors who are very good, like Tom Tekwa, who was my mentor then. He's good with music, you know, like he knows exactly what he wants. And for me, that was a really scary part because I don't know how to communicate music. So on Disconnect, we worked with Ibrahim, who is a local composer. He's here. Ibrahim, please let people see you.
Yes. Welcome, Ibrahim.
Ibrahim. Good job. We work with Ibrahim. Ibrahim is amazing. He's making we compose music in that small room of ours, and every time he just leaves me, you know, in awe. So my approach, because I am weak in knowing what I need, is we sit with Ibrahim and we just test, you know, a bunch of music, and we place it, and for me it's a feeling. I will feel it, I will not feel it. I remember, like in Nairobi Half-Life, there was one scene where he's walking with them Mkokoteni. If you guys have seen Nairobi Half-Life, you know where he meets the cops and all his gangster friends disappear and he's left alone. Just the band music was what we used there. Like, I had gone through like 50 pieces of music, you know, and when we put that in, I just knew. Everybody was against me, including my mentor, Tom. It's like, no, it doesn't work. And I felt it in my soul, and I fought it to the core. And one of the most famous scenes that people remember is that scene, you know, so that affirmed for me, you know, sometimes you feel, you can't explain why, but you feel it inside, and that's what music does. So that's our process, you know, we just sit, we try a bunch of music, we place, like even the whole of Disconnect, we just moved around where the music, like Sauti Sol music ended up being. Let me tell you, it had been placed all over the place, you know, and we just kept moving it back and forth. No, it doesn't work here, it works here, you know, and that's how we approach, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, the end result is brilliant, yeah, and well done to you and well done to Ibrahim, yeah. So, but I think what you face as a director in Kenya, who else directs here or produces here? Do you face the same thing with how to place music? Yeah. So as Mpumi was talking about in her presentation, that's actually a whole other job, which we don't have in our industry. Okay, so as our industry grows, these other jobs will start being created, and we need to now have training of those people and formal training and on-the-job training, and that's the role of a music supervisor. Okay, there's a creative role, which is what Mpumi does, and then also the legal role, understanding how to. You don't have to be a lawyer to clear rights. Mpumi's not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, you just need to know the basics. It's very easy to use, and you bring in a lawyer when you have major issues. Okay. Tosh, my other question is, Disconnect featured music from Avril, also from Fena. We worked on that with you. We represent Fena. Which other artists were there? And it seems to be a movie that you decided that you're going to go all out and use what we call local commercial music. And then, of course, Ibrahim did some composition as well for the soundscaping and sound design. Yeah. What was behind that decision, and how was that experience?
Okay, I'm obsessed about making African film commercial. You know, like look at us. We're always struggling to make films. We have the talent. We have the stories to tell. We have all the ingredients. We just lack a framework of being able to, film costs money, and it's expensive to do. And I've been about how can we make films that Kenyans want to watch, Africans want to watch, and we can, all of us in the system, earn from that. And Disconnect for me was a test for that. Let's appreciate our own. What are we all watching? We're all watching Netflix. We're all watching American shows. That's what we've been watching all our lives. So, okay, there's a certain quality that Kenyans expect or Africans expect. There's a certain kind of films. And, if you look at what's coming from Africa, it's always about, our poverty, our diseases, our, all our problems is what everybody is making films about. What about, just a simple romantic comedy, that people can just watch easy on a Friday night with their girlfriends and just be young, So that was the purpose. Like, can we start saying we want to make commercial films that people go out and watch and enjoy, and they don't have to come out feeling depressed about it. Yep. And using of our local music was high on my list, because what am I saying? I'm saying that we want to tell our stories in our own way and about us. So it would not have made sense for me to start using music that is not ours, And again, it's not been done before. There's a fear of if I use that local music, I've seen a lot of filmmakers. They will easily use Jay-Z's music, because they feel
without asking Jay-Z,
they will never reach, they will never reach me. But here locally, Savara is close. He'll come for me, So they will ignore that instead of actually just, I just spoke to all of them. Vanessa MD, I'm lucky to know a lot of them. So I just went and said, what, this is what we're trying to do. I'm not asking for it for free. I've got a little bit of token money because I'm serious. I don't want it to feel like it's always we're helping each other. But the truth of the matter is, and what I wanted to really say today is that looking at what I've experienced, what I've seen, making Disconnect, it was a lot of, it was quite taxing, because it was from me. It was me saying, I'm going to make a film from nothing. This industry is a baby, We are a baby, and we are behaving like we are the Hollywood, which took 200 years to build, So we need to go back and be a baby, Yeah. Let's start from there. We can't be running before we have crawled. And all creatives, all artists, let's work together, Let's not look at the money now. There is no way we're going to get the money now. I'm telling you, let's go back and say, what are we selling? And what I've realized is that all of us filmmakers here in Kenya, and maybe even in Africa, we approach film as a business or as a way of making money. I want to make a film. Like, if you meet any young filmmaker now, it's like, I want to make a film, be famous, and make money. But you're operating in a space where you don't have that machinery. If you look at the Hollywood, Black Panther, for example, Black Panther's marketing budget was way more than what they spent to make the film. So they're already in a machinery that works. We don't have that. But what do we have? We have the talent, and we have the capabilities, and we have the stories. So can we go back there and work together, you know, I've come to discover so much talent as I go along, but always hindered by what am I getting from it, you know? And oh no, you're making money. You know, there's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of all this. But we don't have the industry. Our people are not watching our stuff. So I think let's go back. Let's be a baby. You know, let's make as much content as we can. You know, work together. You know, give. As long as I have this motto and it has worked for me, I always say, if it's not going to cost me money, like, you know, shillings out of my pocket, and all it needs is my brain and my time, I will do it. You know, if I see where the value, if I see the value of that project, and I've done it, I've directed a lot of stuff that I was never paid for. But you know what? It comes back tenfold. Somebody sees that work somewhere and says, I want that guy who did that job. And I end up earning from it. And in the first place, I got in it because I want to grow. So I think if we get into that space, I'm sorry for talking too much, we're going to grow this industry.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well said. Right attitude, right mindset. Delvin, so is this part of Soul Generation's strategy now as a label is to get more of your music into films? Because you also had, which was the one in Veve? There was also a track in Veve as well. Yeah.
Maybe I'll put it in a different way. What Tosh has said, Tosh has summarized everything. I call myself the ambassador of collaboration, and I started calling myself that this year. Why? Sauti Sol has only reached this far because of lack of collaboration. Would have been farther. I'm not regretting, but why? This is a baby industry. In fact, not a baby, an infant. Look at the music itself only. And you would understand this. Look at music composition, guys. I will start from the bottom, the example. Look at music composition. There's a producer, there's a sound engineer, there's a lyricist, there's a guitarist, there's maybe a pianist, there's a violinist. All those people need to be paid. So for example, take a song like Melanin. We were in studio, we produced it, we called in guitarists and everybody. People were paid, there were split sheets. What I'm trying to say is we are trying from the bottom up to build a system of remuneration for everybody who's taken part in anything. And for that to happen, we started from scratch. Tosh approached us, came to our office and explained himself. And being a Kenyan composer and producer, I was like, I love the story already, and why not? Why not take that music? Because in fact, that music tells, like, when the film, when the image and the music is put together, tells better an African story as compared to what you just saw, the Betin commercial. You saw a techno kind of piece used in a Kenyan, even ghetto setting. Very misplaced. I know I'm not in a position to say so, but you know what I mean, right? Sindio? So it takes us, it takes me as a composer to see the story in Tosh and to understand that the narrative that wants to be portrayed there first. And then we talk the money later. So from us, Soul Generation, we are building the system from bottom up. Right now, you step into our studio, there's a split sheet. You came there, you said, no, change R to A, you're in the split sheet. It's collaboration. Look at the biggest albums of all time. They weren't done by 5 people. They were done by mostly an average of 25 people. Ask yourself, if you're in your room alone, trying to make a piece of music or a piece of film, how will you be worldwide? So it takes all of us to just sit down and realize we have to tell our own stories. You have a film, you have a piece of art that needs good music. I can't just look at you as my next, piece of... I understand intellectual property, and as a musician, man, sometimes we are so engraved in our work, we are so like, we don't think outside the box, but it's very important to just give heart, as Tosh has said, give heart, and it will come back. So as a very infant kind of industry, I would just appreciate, and I will take it upon myself, as I call myself the ambassador of collaboration, to just push it, man. We have a film. Why can't that film have Sauti Sol, Avril, a budding composer from Kayole, someone from Eldoret, and just come up with a good way of telling an African story in the best way possible. So let's just start from scratch. Let's be real with ourselves. There's no industry. We are the industry. We are the people to create it, but there's no systems. So let's try and create the systems. Yeah.
Thank you, Delvin. So, John, would you agree in terms of this divide between the music industry and film and television? Does it exist?
Actually, it does. But I think also amongst musicians themselves, like he was saying, collaborations is the way really to go. And I remember the story of Samba Mapangala with Virunga. When he went to record in France, 4 stars were here, and they told him they're going to play for you for free. Just come to France, you and yourself, and everything was a free session, you know, for him. And I remember going to London one time. I was doing one song, and I went to this studio where Maxi Priest actually was recording, and this guy, he asked me, but how much do you have? The rate he gave me was so, I told him, no, I can't. I mean, I don't have that kind of money. But they consulted and said, look, I mean, you're here, we'll not turn you away. And actually, there were 3 engineers in the studio. And actually, I was thinking, if they were thinking commercial, they would not have actually have bothered with me. I mean, they had done Maxi Priest, they had been Junior Walker and All Stars, you know. And I think that thing about money, putting money first is a real problem. And I think artists probably should also be flexible about this. That also don't slight other people that this is a new person. That's the person who actually keeps the thing interesting by coming out consistently with new people in the business. Or this person is too young, or this person is too old. And also go out of Nairobi. I mean, I've had very good music in Samburus, you know, like traditional music. And that can give you an idea of how to also add value to your own urban kind of sound. And the thing is actually to be exposed. I mean, know what other people are doing. I mean, like Ghana, the hip life came out of that high life, the hip hop kind of, you know, and people working with local music, because that is what to give them character. Because out of Nairobi, I mean, even in the international market, you can't really make much idea if you're actually playing hip hop. You may be a big thing here, but when you go to Europe, you talk, but we have this, and that's happened to Kelly Brown when he went to. Actually, Kelly Brown, most of the Kenya bands are actually going to Europe, but that problem, you get there, so yes, you are good for Kenya, but for here, what value do you bring, you know? And I think that's the same thing in film. There has to be that character side, the Kenyan, and also that creates the music also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. It's now time for some questions, but I think 2 things I've taken out of this is the music industry is being told, play the long game, have it, use film as a strategy for your content, have a longer vision, don't try and get rich off the first deal, yeah? And also, so that's what we're saying. Who do we say is the music industry here? Who's composers? Yeah, so that was the message to you guys. I think the message to the film industry, and thank you, Tosh, for putting aside a budget, yeah? The story of we'll do it to promote you is getting very old for the music industry. So as you put your film budgets together, have something for music, please. They say the good rule of thumb is 10-15% of your budget, yeah? 10% of your budget. Have something. Just get into the habit of putting aside 10% for music. And then when you do, don't go online and buy this music that makes your film sound American. Yeah, it can look Kenyan but sound American, right? Yeah, so let's have Kenyan films sounding Kenyan. Yeah, so let's take some questions from the audience. We'll need your name, where you're from, and your question to whoever's on the panel.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. My name is Josephine. I'm from the Kenya Film Commission. I have 3 questions. The first question is to Ms. Mpumi. On your presentation on the sync, you indicated some price points in the creation of music. So I'd just love to know, what considerations do you have when valuing that amount for the price units? The examples you gave were for a big hit, US dollars 30,000. For a big local hit, you indicated US dollars 15,000. So what considerations do you put in place to determine the value? The next question is to Tosh and Delvin. In compositions. Again, for Delvin, when you're composing your music, what factors do you have in place? Do you have a target in terms of, are you composing this music to target advertisement or games or just your audience? Do you consider that when composing your music? And then when you are approached by Tosh in the movies, an example, The Disconnect, what considerations do you put in place to value the amount of your music that will be used in the film? For Tosh, again, what considerations do you put in place in determining the value? And the question can also be answered by any other musicians in the room. Thank you.
All right, let's take those 3 questions first. Pumi?
Okay, so basically what I said in terms of that slide, that is a guideline. But that guideline is purely determined by the terms of the usage. So it's about the territory, it's about the mediums, it's about also the term in terms of how long that you're going to be using that particular music as well. But when it also comes to film, I think there's another factor that's also very important that we use to determine a fee. We always ask, what is the production budget of a film? For us, that's very important. We're not trying to look at a production budget. Oh, they've got 100 million shilling. They've got money to, to pay. We can charge them 100,000. But working off of the rule of thumb that 10% of your overall budget would be going to music, and keeping in mind that music would then mean also going in, we're talking about final mix, we're talking about having your score and having commercial music. We take those type of things into consideration in terms of how we then charge. So if your film is costing you 1 million shillings to make, that means you would have 100,000 shillings to do for music. So we're not going to charge now the same kind of fees that we were talking about on that particular slide for that usage, because we are understanding of the type of limitations financially that the production may have. They might be still a little out of budget, especially if it is a big song and a big artist, but those are the kind of things that you look into before determining what fees that you're going to charge.
Gotten it? Umupata? Thank you. So I'm going to answer the consideration part. First of all, we are storytellers as musicians, as composers. We express an emotion. So already from the first chords that are played, or the first phrase put, I think we fell in love too fast, a story has started. So what we do, we don't target films. We tell a good story in the song. We make sure the story and the story told in the song is so captivating to the audience that it makes a lot of sense. And when such a story is captivating or relates to the audience, a film director like Tosh approaches us. And for us now is to see the bigger picture. When Tosh comes to us, says, you know what, I have this piece of art. First of all, I look at who Tosh is. Sindio? Tosh has done Nairobi Half Life. So most probably he has some budget, So I do, like you look at someone's profile, you look at their history, it's just business also, right? It's intellectual property. But then you talk to Tosh. You look at Tosh's history. How has Tosh been working with people? How has Tosh been working with his film crew? Is he an inspirational kind of guy? Is he a big thinker? What is he targeting? Is he targeting money, or is he targeting to tell a brilliant African story in an African way? So it's for you to do your background search and understand the motives of Tosh. Tosh doesn't necessarily have a budget, although he looks like. So how he expresses himself and convinces me, and how I'm convinced and I'm sold to that story will determine the kind of contract that I'll have with him. And most of the time, guys, as a composer, I have a song in the library. This song is better off out there, even if I'm not paid, because the public sees, okay, synchronization has started, this thing is working. A young Kenyan musician who is in Lokichogio trying to compose something will have the faith that, oh my God, this is Tosh, who did Nairobi Half-Life. Right now he's using local music. Oh my God, it's happening. They'll be encouraged. So most of the time, it's the story and the heart. Like, it's an intuition. It's not like cast on stone, you know? Especially when it comes to local and how we deal with telling our African stories. So we consider that first as compared to financial gains.
Thank you, Delvin.
Yeah.
Tosh, your question?
It was about consideration.
Yes, what's your consideration when selecting your music, yes?
Yeah, like I was saying before, you know, it's about feeling. For me, it's heavily based on feeling. Like I said, we'll be in that room with Ibrahim. At that point, I'm not thinking, is it Sauti Sol, is it Vanessa MD, is it who? It's just placing pieces of music, you know? What does the scene feel like? Does it feel like slow music? Does it feel like romantic music? Does it feel like, you know, funny music? And then we start thinking, what music do we know that, you know, fits in here? And we place it. We place even music from Nigeria. We place music from wherever. At that point, you're not really thinking who. So you're just thinking what piece of music will work for what we're doing. And then you start narrowing down, you know, and then it starts to shape up. And when it shapes up, is it Sauti Sol? Is it Avril? You know, and from there, then now you know you've created what, Ibrahim, what do you call that shit of yours? Yeah? The cue sheet.
Cue sheet, yes.
So you create that cue sheet and then you start moving from there. Sorry?
Very quickly, we've been asked to wind up.
For Tosh, do you, when you're working with Ibrahim, do you have notes? Oh, sorry, my name is Paul Otieno. I'm trying to make film. Write film, actually. So my question is, when you're sitting down with your composer, do you already have notes that this is the mood I'm looking for in the music, so that when you're sampling, you know what you're working with? Or do you write scenes for specific music? And since I have the mic, I just Ms. Mpumi, when you're working with music, does it cover modification and performance? So for example, do I get full rights? If I sign Fena, can I get a remix of a song? And you deal with legal, just in case agency said we are only going to play it on YouTube, and then you see it at a premiere of a big cinema. Sorry, Mike.
Thank you. Okay, two last questions.
Yeah, definitely. I do, like I'll go through the film and I'll note down on a notebook what I'm feeling here. There's places also you feel, I don't think I want music here. So you have to create that list of what you're feeling. Again, it all goes back to feeling. When you go through the whole, and it connects to, as a director, when you're shooting the film, you know your beats, you know your moments. What are you feeling for this? You know, should there be music? Should there not be music? What kind of music? Maybe the whole scene just needs music all the way through while people talk. Maybe not. So I have to put down a list of what I'm feeling, and I always go with feeling. For me, I think even what I can advise filmmakers, you know, I think it's all about feeling. You know, what we do, making films, connecting with audiences, is they connect with your film because they feel. So I think it's a most fundamental thing that drives us. Because if I don't feel it, I shouldn't expect you to feel it, because we're all humans at the end of the day. So yes, I write down what I'm feeling, and it's time. You know, with time and trial and error. That's why even the commercials I shoot, a long time ago, when you presented a treatment, the client wanted to know, what music are you going to use? I've always been averse to that. You know, I said, I don't know. You know, let me make the film first, then I'll feel what kind of music, you know. And at first, there would be, I lost jobs because of that, but I believed in my process. You know, I believe in making the music to the picture, and that's what works for me, you know, so.
Cool, thank you. Pumi?
I can't remember the question.
The question was about remixes of, you know, find out if you're going to license, yeah, exclusivity, yeah, the different uses of music, different terms.
In a
yeah?
film?
Yes.
In a film. Okay, so yes, you can do anything with permission and money. You know, you have seen, I mean, I've done a film where it was following, the story was about a band. You know, they were a cover band. So they were playing other people's music, but obviously because they're a live band, they would always play it in their own kind of way. So they would do renditions of that music. So my role then was to make sure that that music, those different renditions that they've done, was cleared with the publishing companies and it was paid for. So, I mean, you also have scenes where someone's singing someone's song in the shower. You know, you still have to clear that, even if it's somebody else singing. It's just that one part of the rights fell away, which is the master, because you're not using the master anymore. But you still have to clear the publishing rights, because that is someone's composition nonetheless. In terms of infringement, yes, that is the role of your publisher. If there is an infringement in terms of you agreed that it was going to be on YouTube only and now we're seeing it in the theaters, that is our role to make sure that either our clients are properly compensated for that particular infringement or it stops. For us, it's always a win-win if you can still play it wherever you are playing it and make sure our client is compensated for it. Because at the end of the day, our role is not to you know, it's not to stop things, it's to grow the industry. And I just wanted to just add a little something with regards to the budgets, which I think is really important. Because you know, I'm sure John and Delvin can attest to this. As filmmakers, I think it's because I saw some of the looks when I had that slide of the figures. As filmmakers, I think it's very important for us to understand and for us to appreciate the value chain. And that value chain is inclusive of the music industry and of those artists. Sauti Sol has been around for over 10 years. And they've probably been around for even longer than 10 years, because the rule of thumb is that it takes 10 years to create a hit. So now, if I've been on the grind for over 10 years, creating a name, creating a brand that allows me to be self-sustainable and be able to feed my family from that. As a filmmaker, to have someone say to me as a musician that you're too expensive, why you guys charge so much money, that is not the conversation that you are having with your actors. And that music plays just as a crucial a role that you are, you know, when regards to your film. You know, if we are coming at a level of negotiation, I think it's important that it comes at a level of negotiation with mutual respect for somebody else's craft. You know, so a respect is not promotion, because promotion is not going to buy bread. You know, marketing is not gonna, you know, get the milk in the fridge. And the respect is not by also putting down the talents that someone else has got just because it's a different field within the creative sector. You know, the main reason why you want to use a particular type of music is because you see what role and impact that it can make towards that particular scene or your film. So, yes, us as the music industry, we need to come to party and understand that the budgets are not there. But at the same time, the film industry needs to also understand that when artists and their publishers and their record labels are charging the fees that they're charging, at the end of the day, it is also for that ecosystem to be able to survive and to eat.
Thank you, Pumi. Guys, we need to wrap up. We will stay around. I know that I saw some hands up over there, so I think the panel can stay around for a couple of minutes outside as the next session goes on. I'd like us to wrap up, and when we wrap up, I like doing role reversal. So I'll start with John. So role reversal. So we reverse our roles. So if you were not a composer, if you were a filmmaker like Tosh, what would you be telling the music industry? What would you be telling the music industry today? 30 seconds or less.
I think what Kenya needs, especially for the music side, is a more diverse repertoire, where you have slow songs, fast songs, and the mid-tempo songs. At least give one that variety, that choice, that one can actually, because somehow we seem to be getting the same kind of up-tempo club music. But we need to get instrumentals, we get to be kind of very traditional kind of stuff going on, so that every aspect of the music industry grows, We're not just a youth type, everything else. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Delvin, if you were a filmmaker, what would you be telling the music industry?
For me to be able to tell a better story image-wise, please give me real music. Real music is music that's sincere, music that tells African story, relates. Don't give me music about a subway and we're trying to do a local movie. You understand? Sidio, let's just do music that's relatable. If it's a Maasai song, if it's like music that when a woman in Kitale listens to and watches the image, she relates to. That's all I want. Yeah.
Well said. Thank you, Darwin. Tosh, if you were a music composer, what would you be telling the film industry?
It takes the time it takes. Wow. I think that it's a process. And I think you said it before, that every component, and I think we all understand wherever, if I was a music composer or whatever, that we all need to understand that once that film goes out to the public, everything that is in that film is a part of it. There's nothing bigger or smaller. And that goes to, and I'm also, as I grow, I've been guilty of being, paying less attention to some aspects of the total filmmaking process. And I think that's the biggest lesson we should learn now. This year, I'm telling myself that film for me is no longer passion. It's an FMCG good. That I'm going to approach it as bread, because that has been the biggest weakness for us. We concentrate on making the film, and making that film means the script and going to set and editing. Then all the other aspects, we start now, if it's music, so just give me the music, because we never thought about it, and then we never thought about selling it too. So that's another thing. The people who make bread, they have to market it to us for us to buy it. So why are we not doing the same? So as a music composer, I would tell the filmmaker, please, every aspect of this film is important, and you should pay as much attention.
Excellent. Thank you, Tosh. Pumi, if you were a filmmaker, what would you tell the music industry?
If I was a filmmaker, I would say to the music industry, let us work together. One sync should not be a recovery program for your entire music production budget or what you've spent to create that music. Let us as an industry grow. Sometimes the money may not necessarily be as good,
but the opportunities that can arise from it could even be greater. So let's work together as film and music.
Thank you. So I'm from the music industry as well, so I guess if I was a filmmaker talking to the music industry, I would say to composers, get a music publisher like Share Publishing. Because as a filmmaker, I don't have time to come and meet 20 of you individually and to have 20 individual negotiations, and the first figure you give me, you think you're going to get rich off the first sync deal you ever do. It's the hard truth. Artists look at sync deals like, yes, even for adverts, I've made it. Yeah, that's it. You know, I want 5 million shillings, and that's all I want. And guess what happens? They miss out on the deal. And they miss out on other deals because they've spoiled the relationship. So that is the role of the publisher. My advice to creatives is stay creative. Find a publisher that you trust to work with users of music like film, television, advertising, online, gaming, to do those negotiations for you, to sort out all the legal and trust us to implement international best practice. Thank you guys, you've been a fantastic audience. Thank you for your time. Thank you to our panelists as well. We'll hang around, just allow us to do a quick group photo and then we can meet just outside the door. Thank you, have a great afternoon. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. That's very well done. Yeah, let's do more. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, let's go answer some questions.